Antibiotics or antimicrobials was discovered serendipitously by bacteriologist Alexander Fleming in 1928 when he noticed that a mold had created a bacteria-free circle from this contaminated bacterial culture and decided to isolate the mold in a pure culture. And through extraction, he gets penicillin, the first antibiotics. So since then, numerous antibiotics have arisen, and most have had microbial resistance develop against it within just a few short years. The development of antimicrobials or antibiotics and the appearance of superbugs are often presented and explored in the medical and microbiological context, but ecological aspects of this topic are not only interesting, but central to understanding the big picture. So in this video, I'd like to explore the question, what ecological effects can we observe in the discovery of antibiotics and the rise of superbugs? So where did antibiotics even come from? Why is it possible for the penicillium mold to create a circle of death in the bacterial culture? Well, this can be explained with the various mechanisms of evolution. So we see co-evolution at play through interference competition due to competitive exclusion between fungi and bacteria. Penicillium, the first antibiotic producing mold or fungi discovered by Fleming, provides a good example for the aforementioned principles. So we can see competitive exclusion between penicillium and actually a lot of fungi and bacteria, as they both like dark and damp habitats and share many of the nutrients. So we see them sharing the same resources in the same way. And this undoubtedly leads to competitive exclusion. And due to this, they need to devise ways. They have to compete with each other and they have to gain the upper hand for obtaining this habitat and nutrients. And so penicillium does this by using a chemical warfare, basically. It's protein beta-lactam antibiotic, penicillin, that's what it produces, but that's beta-lactam antibiotics, actually a class of antibiotics, doesn't just include penicillin. And what it does is it disrupts the formation of bacterial peptidoglycan, a part of its cell wall and membrane complex. And without it, no cells can live, basically. Eukaryote, prokaryote, we all need our cell wall / membranes. But it is worthy, I think it's worthy to note that as humans, of course, antibiotics seems the most important to us, but to a fungi or to a mold, it doesn't really matter. It will produce chemical defenses or weapons against anything that interferes with its fitness, whether it be predators when it produces this thing called alpha amanitin, I believe, and it's toxic, or it produces a lipopeptide pneumocandin B0, which is actually used against other fungi, which tries to compete with it. So that's interesting to know because we're talking ecologically and not just medically or like on a human like central level. But continuing on, when talking about this type of co-evolution through interference competition, it's good to mention this like this evolutionary warfare has a hypothesis. It has like an actual terminology called the Red Queen hypothesis. The name of this hypothesis comes from Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass of the Red Queen, which is a pretty famous character, and she said to Alice in this book, here you see it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. So from this quote, we can see the nature of this kind of warfare between this fungi and bacteria and how they often they just keep evolving. They have to keep running to keep at the same pace, or else if one just doesn't match with the other, it gets outcompeted, it probably will go extinct. So everything you do to not go extinct, basically. And since it's a warfare, bacteria has its counterattacks as well. And we can see this in a very relevant topic that threatens to bring us back to the days before antibiotics, rise of the superbugs. Okay, so ecological aspects of this, right? So as we all know, through evolution by selective adaptation, all organisms become more fitted to their environment or to their habitat. However, there are some characteristics of bacteria that help it develop beneficial traits, such as antibiotic resistance at a much more rapid pace than larger animals such as like us mammals in general, they're very fast. And this can be explained mostly through their general life history trait of just bacteria, prokaryotes in general. They're generally short-lived individuals with extremely rapid reproduction, generally asexual. And this with the additional fact that they're when they replicate their DNA, there's no proofreading mechanisms like we do. And this allows for a way higher chance of mutations. And with higher chance of mutation, they have a higher chance of developing antibiotic resistant genes in a very, very short amount of time compared to us. We probably would need millions of years to genetically develop like a gene that is good and is correct for like, but that's getting besides the point. And this process of evolution is furthered by the life history tree for bacteria strains that have gained antibiotic resistance because of their lower mortality rate. Their lower mortality rate means they get to live longer, actually live longer than other bacteria, of course, still short compared to us, but longer than other bacteria, allowing them a more advantage in passing their genes on through asexual reproduction or other, they have sexual reproduction, but I won't get into that. It's all beneficial to passing on their genes. And so when bacteria such as Clostridium difficile, tuberculosis, when they gain resistance, the ecological aspects of this gaining of resistance is not only limited to this, basically. It also, if we consider human like demographic ecology, it has a definite impact on us as well, as we can see at this time. Like, our there's huge shifts in our not huge. There's shifts in the demographics around the world due to the pandemic we're currently in. And so, so let's let me give a very specific example, and let's see. We can use the SIR model that we have learned in class to basically see its demographic the demographic ecology kind of impact on humans. So, MRSA, which is short for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, and very quite frequently mentioned when we talk about superbugs, the star of superbugs, if you will. And let's go ahead and explore that. So 1 out of every 3 people actually carry S. aureus on them. And it's pretty insane. Like we in our class, let's say there's 100 people, there's at least 33 people which carries it, like at the moment, statistically speaking. And but good thing is it usually does no harm to a healthy individual. Well, the problem arises when we become immunocompromised. Then it takes advantage of that, and it will infect you. And so, if we remember our SIR model, susceptible, reinfected, and recovering, the susceptibility of this bacteria is insanely high. Just think about it: 1 every 3 people, it's all over us. It's on the skin. It's everywhere. It's basically everywhere, right? And so this is for the immunocompromised individuals for our community. We basically consider them all to be very susceptible, like highly likely to get this. And then we consider and then but it's not just the susceptible part. The infected and recovery area is affected as well when it becomes methicillin, which is an antibiotic. Didn't mention that, but methicillin, when it's resistant to that, which was the primary way to treat S. aureus, hence resistance gaining. And since it's resistant to that, the infected individual, it's very difficult for them to, at least more difficult for them to actually recover. The time it takes for an individual to go from the I group to R group takes longer, and it just has it shifts the disease equation even more in favor of spreading of this bacteria, basically. And I'd like to talk about vancomycin, but probably not enough time. And then, so where do we go from all this? Superbugs, they're getting resistant. For example, when penicillin first came out, it was bought and sold in grocery stores. This cannot hand it out like candy. Basically, you don't need a prescription. You can just buy it. You just take it, go to you don't, there's no restrictions. So a lot of people just ate it, but they don't know how to eat, how long to eat it for. They don't take the full dose for a full amount of time, and the bacteria that lives in that they've been infected with, it gains resistance and it spreads out. And that's how basically antimicrobials have been able to gain, so many strains have been able to gain so much resistance in this short amount of time because of our concentrated and often improper use of it. As individuals, we must take responsibility when we use antibiotic products. But more importantly, this is a situation that's really, like, if we want an actual solution to it, it's quite beyond the individual scope or beyond what we can do as individuals. So as not society, but as I guess as societies or as like the global community, we have to be able to either discover new antibiotics or microbials, or we have to ease off on this kind of way of treating bacterial infection and find other ways, such as there's actually been what's used in the past is using another bacteria that doesn't cause disease to fight against this kind of bacteria in like competition as well, because this works. We have natural microbiota in our body, and our host, the ones that live with us, we are actually in a mutualistic kind of relationship. We provide it with all its nutrient, a suitable temperature, how it has to grow in, and they can help us actually compete against bad bacteria that will be dangerous to us because their fate is tied quite tightly with ours. And this is a way, and also vaccines actually have been kind of vaccines targeting not the bacteria, but different functions of the bacteria or different aspects that only bacteria have that we don't have, kind of they've been trying to look at that. But besides these ways, we're not in a very good situation with this. And I think this whole topic, this whole situation just really shows how important it is to think about things in a multidisciplinary way. Because when we just think about it in the terms of like in a medicinal way or in microbiological ways, you don't really think about like the development resistance, where it comes from, where it goes, and everything. You don't get this big kind of picture of view, and so it's just a lack of. So failing to considering the ecological aspect and a lack of awareness of resistance development, and really land us where we are today. So yeah, hopefully this video was able to really explore some of the ecological aspects of this very interesting topic, and hope we can move forward to a better future in terms of this situation. Right. Thank you for watching this video.